That's the change restaurant owners are leveling against food aggregators like Zomato and Swiggy. We all have those applications on our mobile phones. And once seen as enablers of the industry, these very platforms and applications are now accused of using restaurant data to launch their own brands, undercutting prices and tightening their grip on the food business. Now, with deep discounting, high commissions, private labeling, are restaurants being forced out of the game? That's the big question we're trying to ask. The concerns took center stage at the National Restaurant Association of India's town hall meeting, where industry leaders called for urgent intervention, even regulation. Here's my colleague Nabila with the full story, and we'll probe this further right after this full report. Take a look.
Food aggregators like Zomato and Swiggy, once seen as game changers for the restaurant industry, are now facing criticism for allegedly using restaurant data to compete against them. Many restaurant owners argue that these platforms, originally designed to facilitate food delivery, are now launching their own brands, leveraging insights from partner businesses to gain an unfair edge. Restaurant owners now believe they're being outplayed, outpriced, and outmaneuvered. Restaurateurs at the NRAI, that is the National Restaurant Association of India's annual town hall, attended by 8,000 industry members, raised concerns over the rising friction, with food aggregators debating their impact on the restaurant business.
High rising commissions. I'm using the word rising because the commissions are only rising and rising. High rising discounts. The discounts are only rising and rising. Opaque policies. Random change in policies as per the whims and fancies of aggregators, and the line between independence and dependency is very blurred today.
Here are some of the key areas of concerns. Private labeling by aggregators. Platforms are launching their own food brands using restaurant data to gain an unfair advantage. Deep discounting practices is disrupting both dine-in and delivery businesses, making it harder for restaurants to sustain profits. Loss of customer ownership, wherein restaurants claim aggregators have stolen their customers, turning loyal patrons into platform-dependent users. Aggregator payment platforms, wherein bundled payment gateways force restaurants into higher costs and limit their autonomy. No authority on commission rates. 69% of restaurants feel that they have no negotiation power when it comes to commission rates. From partner to rival with exclusive data, access and premium placement on their own platforms, aggregators are directly competing with restaurants.
Now they have gotten down to setting up their own kitchens, to making their own food. While I think the more popular ones is of course, Zepto, Cafe and Bistro and Snack. But I think what has also been going on is Zomato Everyday and Swiggy Daily, which are both private labels, maybe wrapped in the disguise of home chefs. But essentially, they're controlling the pricing, they're controlling the brand, the visibility on the app. It gets absolutely premium real estate at the top of their main apps.
The biggest elephant in the house are the latest developments where we hear about aggregators getting into private labels, selling similar food sold by restaurants. And I repeat, what we are not okay with is aggregators getting into our territory, selling similar products, selling private labels. They have all our data. Anyways, there is consumer masking, there is data masking. We have lost the right of our data in their hands long time ago. And now using that data to sell similar products is completely not acceptable.
For years, Zomato and Swiggy positioned themselves as enablers for restaurants. Now, many believe they are tilting the scales in their favor. In less than a decade, they have evolved from delivery platforms to quick commerce giants. Zomato holds 58% market share with a Rs 1,371 crore profit in the financial year 2024. Swiggy saw 42% user growth, reporting Rs 1,237 crore in profit. By launching the private labels and leveraging restaurant data, they're no longer just service providers, but they are competitors. Many fear the shift could push restaurants to the brink. As concerns grow, will regulators step in?
Zomato, Swiggy, the corporate giants when you're talking about food applications, are they still enablers or have they become direct competitors? To talk more about this, joining me here on the broadcast is Anurag Katriyar, trustee and ex-president of the National Restaurant Association of India, and Pranav Rungta, the vice president of NRAI. Mr. Rungta, I'm going to quickly come to you. Help the viewers you understand how big this problem actually is, how surmounting a challenge this actually is. How is this restaurant data being used unfairly? How have private labels, let's say, for example, affected your business?
Thank you. So, what's happened in the last 10 years is Zomato and Swiggy have been collecting data about how users order, where they order from, at what price they order food, at what time do they order the food, right? They have this whole bank of data which is available to them. Basis this data, it's very easy for them to create a kitchen in a certain area, knowing that there is a demand for certain product in that area. They will price that dish at the price at which customers want to pay and sell it and give it to them at the cheapest price possible. This bank of data has been collected years and years from restaurants placing orders with them. And this is what they're going to leverage against us to ensure that they give the customers something cheaper, faster than what is currently available right now from restaurants.
Mr. Katriyar, come in on this, the deep discounting and how it's affecting the dine-in and the delivery margins. We're looking at, higher compensation, and because of that, there seems to be no negotiation, chips on the bargaining table.
Yeah, in fact, it's not only about discounting. I call them the 3Ds. There is discovery cost, there is a discount cost, and there is, a cost towards gaining traction with the people. And the combined cost of these things add up to almost 35-40% of the revenue in the delivery business. Now, anybody will tell you at that kind of levels of commission, this business becomes unviable. It is no way that you can survive by paying 35-40% to them. So what they have done really is, while the market size may have grown better than where it was, but essentially they have done two things. They have taken away the consumers who were actually ordering directly onto their platform, now claiming them to be their own customers. And number two, they have taken away profitability out of this delivery business. Today, people cannot make money on delivery business if they are with the aggregators. And we have seen the whole playbook has been very simple. They first come into you with a very small commission, then they start offering huge discounts and cashbacks, etc., because they have the money to do that. I call it dollar dumping. And then when these customers move onto their platforms, they change the terms of engagement, unilaterally. And that is where the problem is. That is where the whole healthy delivery food service ecosystem has been completely ruined.
All right. Mr. Rungta, could an alternative, because what comes to my mind is an application like InDrive where the client and the driver, they're face-to-face, they can negotiate themselves. There are various other cab applications. If you look at what's happening in Bengaluru as well, a reformist step that all the cab drivers themselves have taken up. Is there a possibility that a restaurant-owned platform could come up? And whilst you're at it, help the viewers understand what kind of alternatives do restaurants have at their disposal?
Thanks, Abhi. So actually, the difference between a peer-to-peer model and a restaurant model is there's a third layer of delivery involved in this. So when you're talking about InDrive and various apps like this, it is the customer who's connecting directly with the rider. In our case, it's the customer who's going to connect directly with the restaurant, but there's also a factor of delivery. And this all needs to be done on demand. This needs to be done immediately, right? Because food has to be delivered hot. So there are certain complications. What the aggregators nicely done using the tactics which Mr. Katriyar spoke about is that they control the entire ecosystem. They control the logistics, they control the customers, and they control the restaurant. The alternate coming in right now is through a very modern level of thinking, which is called open network, right? Which ONDC is trying to build. What ONDC is trying to build is they're trying to leverage the buyers, the buyer apps who have all the customers, the seller apps which have all the merchants with them, and build in a third layer of network, which is the logistics coming in. They're trying to cut all these three things together, which will then end up being the alternate. And we hope this will come in very soon. We're working very deeply with ONDC. The ONDC's built this council called the Food Council. We're working very hard to build a profitable model, which is in which the ecosystem all three partners of the ecosystem will benefit. And hopefully this will come out very soon.
Right. Just to tell the viewers as well that we also try to get in touch with Zomato, with Swiggy as well. Zomato couldn't make their spokesperson available due to it being called on short notice. But we'll keep you updated as to what Zomato has to say on this particular front. But we spoke about Zepto Cafe, the Blinkit groceries, the huge market share as well. Mr. Katriyar, I'm going to come to you next. This territorial war that a gentleman in the package and the report was also talking about. That means there is high need for regulation and the government needs to step in. So when the government does step in and when the policy drafting and the policy formation is being done, what are some of the key points that all these policymakers should keep in mind?
Listen, I think, yes, there is this whole quick commerce thing has come about in a very big way today. Zepto started it, now Blinkit, and then Swiggy. Everybody has gotten into the bandwagon. Our problem starts the moment they get into the cooked food business. Because unlike Zepto, with others, they have a complete heat map of what is what is in demand in a particular area at a particular time at a particular hour, and when that happens, they have a complete control over the data of the restaurants. So you may very well have a case, and somebody said that during our town hall that you mentioned earlier in the story, that in Chennai there were two, there was one delivery partner, there was one of the kitchens of the aggregator. One had 20 riders waiting outside, other was shown as unavailable. Riders are not available. This is the kind of thing. So what we need really when the e-commerce policy is being drawn, I think number one, we must be very, very clear that a marketplace cannot be a market player on their own marketplace. That goes against the basic tenets of e-commerce policy. That's number one. Number two, the data. The data has to be shared by the stakeholders. In fact, I would like to believe that the people who are ordering from the restaurants are the customers of the restaurants. Restaurants should have the singular right over the data, wherein as of date, it is the aggregators who claim total ownership of that data. And they're sharing the data amongst themselves, and as much as they may want to deny, we have enough proof to say that, they are using each other's data, whether it's Zomato using Blinkit and so on and so forth. And that's why the e-commerce policy has to be very equitable, which actually propels a profitable growth model for the entire sector. Just growing the number of orders and everybody losing money is no growth. That is an absolutely, I think it's what I call a click-driven valuation model is being pushed around as the primary way of looking at businesses.
Right.
For us, we believe profitability is at the core of doing any business. And if that is not happening, then there is no growth in the sector.
Profitability also has to be sustainable. Mr. Rungta, I'm going to give you the final say before we wrap up this segment. If regulation does come in, if new laws are drafted, because we're talking about ensuring fairness here, what particular points do you think are of grave significance have to be kept in mind, those measures, when we're talking about ensuring that there is fairness?
So definitely anti-competitive, right? So the first thing is, as an e-commerce operator, as a marketplace, you cannot be doing your own private labels. You cannot be competing with the own restaurants that are listed on your platform. That's the most important thing. There is data privacy, which is very important. We understand consumers want their data not to be spam, not to be sold out. I think that with this new the new digital data competition bill, the government has put a very fair framework in place where the fiduciary is the owner of the data and the restaurateur has access to that data. So I think this is very well concerned. We need to be very careful about looking at how the smaller players don't get sort of crushed by these larger players coming in, right? So these are the three factors which we really need to stick for and which is what we stand for over here.
Points, Mr. Katriyar and Mr. Rungta. Many thanks for joining us here on this discussion. Again, telling the viewers that we did get in touch with Zomato. Of course, due to the short notice, they couldn't make their spokesperson available. But those points, and I think the prime aspect over here is the right over a restaurant's own data that needs to be taken into account. Many thanks, gentlemen, for joining us here on News 9 MZ.